Good morning, guys. Today, or good afternoon. Depend. I'm so used to saying good morning because I saw all y'all in the morning. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever the case may be. Today, we are finishing up our chapter on taxes and spending, or revenue and spending. I keep saying taxes because that's what we typically call it, but it is revenue for our government. Today, we're talking about state and local revenue. Now, picking up where we left off last week. Remember our last class period. Remember we talked about government spending, how we go, where we go about, what categories we spend money for the federal government, how they have to go about spending money through our budget process. Our fiscal year, remember, was October 1st to September 30th, and that typically we have a budget deficit, which leads us into more and more debt, right? So, we're picking up this class period talking about state taxes. Now, I'm not going into anything fancy here, but I do need you to know that state and local governments are required to have a balanced budget, meaning they cannot go in debt. State governments, local governments, once again, state governments and local governments cannot go in debt. It's called the Balanced Budget Act. Balanced Budget Act. Once again, that is the Balanced Budget Act. Why do you think I said that multiple times? Okay, then, that means it's important. Now, for our state taxes, how do we get money? The biggest source of income for the state governments is intergovernmental revenue. Means federal government gives your states money, right? We call that grant and aid. Intergovernmental revenue. Money collected at one level trickles its way down to the others. So, money collected in the state and the federal government trickles its way down to the states. Another large source of revenue is sales tax. Sales tax is a huge source of revenue. Not for the state of Alabama, because our sales tax is not that much. It's 6%. Some states don't even have a sales tax. Well, how do they get more money? How do they get money? You see all these other categories? They make it up here. All of these others are a lot of funding for those governments. Hey, whether it is employee retirement, so like me, myself, my husband, we pay money every month into our retirement. Well, what do they do in the meantime? They're using that money, right? So employee retirement, individual income tax, or state income tax, higher education fees. So if you go to college, that's where the higher education fee comes in. Corporate income tax. They're going to pay a lot of money in corporate income tax. Interest earnings, hospital fees, property taxes are going to be very high in those states like Florida, Arizona, that don't have sales tax. You're going to pay a lot of property tax. Utilities and state-owned liquor stores make up a lot of money. Oh, didn't I just tell you? The Balanced Budget Amendment. Most states, guys, have a balanced budget amendment. That means you cannot spend more than you bring in. So, if, for example, you are a state and you see that your revenue is dropping, like during the pandemic, right? State of Alabama said, hold up. What do we got to do? Here's what we got to do. We got to start cutting some programs, y'all. We got to cut where we spend our money. You cannot spend more than you take in most states. In the local governments, which also have a balanced budget amendment, state and local has a balanced budget amendment for most cities and states. The mayor, the city council, the judge, they are the ones that are responsible for making sure that the budget is that the budget is approved and it is balanced. Okay, where at our level, right, at the state level, who is responsible? Well, that would be the governor, right? Governor Ivey. In Montgomery, it would be Mayor Reed. All right? So every head of the government would be responsible for making sure the balanced budget amendment is passed. Or is passed and followed. All right? So typically, guys, some revenue and some, this is just general. All right? Because we're moving into our local governments. Where does local government spend money? All right, and that's what it shows you here. That's what it shows you here. All right, we'll get to that. All right. So, how does local government, local, right? That would be our city and our county. Where do they get money? Oh, y'all. Once again, that intergovernmental revenue is the trickle-down effect. Think about rain going down a gutter. If it rains money at the federal government, if it's raining money, it's going to trickle down to the state, and then it is trickling down to the local governments. Each local government gets money from the state government. And then, the second largest source of income, that's the first largest source of income. The second largest source of income is going to be the property taxes. Property taxes. Property taxes is the second largest source. All right? Whether it be real estate, whether it be stocks, bonds, personal property, that property tax is the second largest source. Then we have sales tax, which of course we know it's not the same for every county, but that typically makes up the third source. And then utilities. Remember our natural monopolies? Remember our water? Our electricity? That's the fourth largest source of income. Woo, y'all. Now, where do we spend money? I told you about the budget. Mayor presents the budget, just like they do where the president presents the budget to Congress. And then the city council has to sit there and hash it out, just like the Congress would. And then they can decide whether they're going to pass it or not. Right? So, that's a little bit about the budget process. It doesn't change. But here is my question to you. Where do we spend our money? Everybody's saying, oh, we need to raise our taxes in Alabama. Raise the taxes. The money will go to the schools. No, it doesn't. Most of the funding for schools comes from local government. So that's property tax that everybody's trying to push in Montgomery, increasing property taxes, that is to increase money for the schools. All right? So that's why everybody's trying to push it. But then you have, well, if we get revenue from the natural monopolies, right? The natural gas, water, electric, sewer. But we got to spend money to run those businesses, right? So that's where the local expenditures for the public utilities comes in. Then our hospitals, police and fire, and then other things like the roadways, paying the mayor, public welfare, corrections, which would be our jails and prisons, health, higher education, parks and recreation. All of those make up the local expenditures. Do I expect you to remember each one? No. I don't expect you to remember each one, but I need you to know that each part of government is responsible for specific things. All right, it is not where the federal government does. The federal government does some of this stuff. The state the state government does the same stuff. The local government does the same stuff. No, they're each responsible for their own things. Now, does that mean our state does not have police officers? No, we call them state troopers, right? Does that mean that our state does not have to deal with public welfare? No, they still have to deal with those things. But that is not their main responsibility. Okay, so you have to understand that that revenue is important at each level of government because that's how they get their money. But not only that, they have to decide and determine very precisely what they're going to spend their money on, because as we know, money does not grow on trees. And especially at the state and local level, guys, they cannot spend more than they make. All right, so that is a huge part. Fiscal policy is not going away. We will talk about fiscal policy again when we talk about the Federal Reserve and our monetary system next chapter.